The screaming alarms echoed through the bridge of the starship Eternal Dawn as Admiral Jinwu gripped his command chair. Outside the reinforced windows, the darkness of space lit up with deadly laser fire. The Vorthak war machines moved like metallic monsters, their hulking forms bristling with weapons that could tear apart entire planets. "Sir, we've lost the New Hope and the Rising Star," reported Lieutenant Hay-1 from her station. Her voice stayed steady, but Jinwu could see her hands shaking as she worked the controls. They had trained for moments like this, but nothing could prepare anyone for watching their friends die in explosions that lit up the void. Captain So Min's voice crackled through the communication system from the planet's surface. "Admiral, the evacuation ships are taking heavy fire. We need more time." In the background, Jinwu could hear explosions and the terrified screams of civilians running for their lives. Jinwu closed his eyes for a moment. 50 years of his life spent protecting humanity, and it was all coming to an end on this forgotten world at the edge of space. The Vorthak had been unstoppable for 3 years now, sweeping across human colonies like a plague. Their technology was beyond anything humans had ever seen. Their shields absorbed every weapon humanity threw at them, while their biomechanical warriors seemed to feel no pain or fear. "How many ships do we have left?" Jinwu asked, though he already knew the answer would break his heart. 12, sir. Out of the 200 we started with." Hai-Wan's voice was barely a whisper. The bridge shook violently as another Vorthak blast found its mark. Sparks flew from damaged control panels and the lights flickered. Through the chaos, Jinwu could see the last evacuation ship struggling to break through the alien blockade. Thousands of families were packed into that. A vessel. Children who would never see their homes again. Parents who had lost everything except hope. "All ships cover the evacuation transport," Jinwu ordered into his communicator. "Give them everything we have." The remaining human ships moved into formation, their weapons blazing against the enemy. It was like throwing stones at a mountain, but they had to try. Every second they bought meant more innocent lives might escape. Down on the planet's surface, Captain So Min watched the sky burn. The city around her was in ruins, its beautiful towers reduced to smoking rubble. Families ran past her carrying whatever they could save, photographs, toys, small pieces of the lives they were leaving behind forever. "Keep moving," So Min shouted to the civilians. "The ships won't wait much longer." She helped an elderly man who had fallen, his grandchildren crying beside him. These people trusted her to keep them safe, but how could she protect them from an enemy that seemed to have no weaknesses? A young mother carrying her baby stumbled near So Min. "Captain, will we ever come home?" she asked, tears streaming down her face. So Min wanted to lie to give her hope, but the truth was written in the burning sky above them. "We'll find a new home," she said instead, "somewhere safe." Back in space, Admiral Jinwu watched as 3 more of his ships exploded in brilliant flashes. The Vorthak weren't just destroying the human fleet, they were playing with them like cats toying with mice. Their massive command ship, a twisted thing that looked like it had grown rather than been built, hung back and watched the slaughter. "Sir, the evacuation ship is clear," Hai-Wan reported. They made it to the jump point. Jinwu felt a small moment of relief. At least some would survive to carry on humanity's story. But as he looked at the overwhelming alien fleet surrounding them, he knew this was the end. Humanity had fought bravely, but courage wasn't enough against an enemy with such superior technology. "All ships, prepare for final assault," he ordered. "We may not win, but we'll make them remember us." That's when something impossible happened. Deep beneath the planet's surface, in caves that hadn't been disturbed for thousands of years, ancient machines began to hum with power. Dr. Hai-Wan's cousin, an archaeologist named Yu Jin, who was trapped in the old ruins, stared at his equipment in amazement. The readings were off the charts. Energy signatures that shouldn't exist were pulsing from burial sites across the planet, sites that his team had studied for years without finding anything unusual. The power levels were climbing rapidly, creating patterns that looked almost like a heartbeat. "What is that?" Eugene whispered to himself as the ancient chambers around him began to glow with soft blue light. Something was waking up after sleeping for a very, very long time. Above in space, Admiral Zhou prepared for humanity's last battle, unaware that their darkest hour was about to become something entirely different. Dr. Eugene crouched in the dusty underground chamber, his hands trembling as he watched impossible readings flood his scanner. The energy signatures were getting stronger by the minute, pulsing like a massive heartbeat beneath the ancient stone floor. He had spent 5 years studying these ruins, convinced they were just old burial sites from humanity's prehistoric past. Now everything was changing. The blue glow spread across the carved walls, revealing symbols that seemed to move and shift in the light. Eugene had never seen writing like this before. It looked human, but wrong somehow. Too advanced, too complex, for people who supposedly lived in caves and hunted with spears. "This can't be right," he muttered, adjusting his equipment again. But the readings stayed the same. Whatever was down here had been sleeping for over 50,000 years, and now it was waking up. Above ground, the sounds of the alien invasion grew louder. The Vorthak had landed their massive ships in every major city, and their biomechanical soldiers were hunting down the last humans who hadn't made it to the evacuation ships. Eugene knew he should be running, should be trying to find a way off this doomed planet, but something kept him here in these ancient tunnels. The glow suddenly intensified, and Eugene heard a sound that made his blood freeze. The hiss of pressurized air being released. Somewhere in the chamber something was opening. He followed the sound deeper into the ruins, his flashlight cutting through shadows that had remained undisturbed since before recorded history. The air felt different here, charged with electricity that made his skin tingle. His scanner was going crazy now, detecting energy levels that should have been impossible. That's when he found the first pod. It stood upright against the far wall, made from some kind of metal that didn't seem to reflect light properly. The surface was smooth and warm to the touch, with veins of that same blue energy running through it like blood vessels. Through a transparent section at the top, Eugene could see a face. It was human, but not like any human he had ever seen. The man inside looked to be in his 30s, with strong features and scars that spoke of countless battles. His hair was longer than modern fashion, and his skin had a bronze tone that suggested a life spent under alien suns. But what struck Eugene most were the man's eyes. Even closed in sleep, they seemed to hold depths of knowledge and pain that no ordinary person should carry. The pod made a soft clicking sound, and the transparent section began to slide open. Eugene stumbled backward, his heart pounding. This was impossible. People couldn't survive in stasis for 50,000 years. The technology didn't exist, not even now in humanity's most advanced age. The man inside took his first breath in millennia. His eyes opened, and Eugene felt like he was looking into the heart of a storm. They were dark brown, but they seemed to contain flecks of gold that moved like living things. The man sat up slowly, his movements careful and controlled, like someone who had fought in more battles than anyone should survive. When he spoke, his voice was deep and rough from disuse, and the words came in a language that sounded almost familiar, but not quite right. Eugene's translation device struggled for a moment before finding patterns it could work with. "How long?" the man asked, switching to words Eugene could understand better. 50,000 years, Eugene whispered, still not believing what he was seeing. "Give or take a few centuries." The man's expression didn't change, but something flickered in those strange eyes. "Then they've returned." "Who? The Vorthak? You know about them?" The man stood up, and Eugene was surprised by how tall he was. Despite sleeping for thousands of years, his body looked strong and ready for battle. Scars covered his arms and chest, each one telling a story of conflicts that history had forgotten. "I am Tai Jin," the man said, his voice growing stronger with each word. "And the Vorthak are not your real enemy. They are just the beginning." Before Eugene could ask what he meant, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. His scanner showed more pods opening all around them, dozens of them, hidden in chambers that his team had never found. The energy network was spreading across the planet, and possibly beyond. "You need to get me to your military commanders," Tai-Jin said, examining the strange clothes Eugene had brought for emergencies. "Your people are fighting this war wrong. They don't understand what they're really facing." What do you mean? Yujin asked, helping Tai-Jin put on the modern clothing. Who are you people? How did you survive in those pods? Tai-Jin paused, looking at Yujin with eyes that had seen civilizations rise and fall. We are what your species used to be, before you forgot how to fight the darkness between the stars. We are the reason humanity survived the first time these creatures came hunting. More pods opened in the distance, their ancient occupants stirring to life. Yujin could hear voices speaking in that same archaic language, warriors from a time when humanity faced enemies that made the Vorthak look like children playing with toys. The real war, Tai-Jin said quietly, is about to begin. The ancient chamber filled with voices as more pods hissed open across the underground complex. Yujin watched in amazement as warriors from humanity's forgotten past stepped into the modern world. Each one moved with the deadly grace of someone who had survived countless battles against impossible odds. A woman emerged from the nearest pod, her long black hair streaked with silver despite her youthful appearance. Her eyes glowed with an inner light that made Yujin's skin crawl with electricity. When she looked at him, he felt like she was seeing straight through to his soul. "I am Yuna," she said, her voice carrying an authority that made the air itself seem to listen. "I commanded the Psychic Warfare Division during the last great conflict." Another pod opened, revealing a massive man whose arms were covered in intricate tattoos that seemed to move in the blue light. His hands were scarred from working with dangerous materials, and his eyes held the focused intensity of someone who understood machines better than most people understood themselves. "Hyun Sik," he introduced himself simply. "I built the weapons that held back the darkness for 3,000 years. From across the chamber came a softer voice. A smaller woman with intelligent eyes and quick movement stepped forward. Unlike the others, she carried herself like someone who fought with her mind rather than her fists. "Darsom," she said with a slight bow. "Strategic planning and fleet coordination. I'm guessing from what I can sense above us that you need both right now." Tai-Jin looked around at his awakened companions, and Yujin saw something pass between them, a shared understanding of battles fought and losses endured that no modern human could comprehend. "The network is active across 12 star systems," Yuna reported, her eyes briefly glowing brighter as she reached out with senses Yujin couldn't imagine having. "Jun Seo and Mi-Ra are awakening on the colony worlds. The old guard is returning." "Good," Tai-Jin said. "We'll need everyone if the Devourers are coming." "Devourers?" Yujin asked. "You keep mentioning them, but the Vorthak are the ones destroying everything." Darsom turned to him with a sad smile. "Child, the Vorthak are like ants compared to what's really out there. We fought the Devourers for 5,000 years before we finally drove them back to the dark spaces between galaxies. They consume entire worlds, not just conquering them, but literally eating the life force of every living thing." Hyun Sik was already examining Yujin's scanner with interest. "Your technology has advanced in some ways, but you've forgotten the most important lessons. You build weapons to fight other humans, not cosmic horrors." "We need to reach your fleet commanders," Tai-Jin said. "Every minute we waste here means more of your people die needlessly." Yujin activated his emergency communicator, hoping someone was still alive to answer. To his relief, Admiral Jinwoo's voice crackled through the static. "Yujin, where have you been? We thought you were dead." "Admiral, I have people here who can help. They know how to fight the Vorthak." There was a pause. "What people? The evacuation records show you were alone down there." "It's complicated. Can you get us to the fleet?" "The fleet barely exists anymore. We have maybe 8 ships left and we're hiding in the asteroid belt. But if you have information that can help..." Tai-Jin took the communicator. "Admiral, my name is Tai-Jin. I fought these creatures 50,000 years ago. Your current weapons cannot penetrate their bioadaptive armor, but I can show you how to modify them." Another pause, longer this time. "Who did you say you were?" "Someone who has been waiting a very long time for this conversation." 2 hours later, a small rescue ship slipped through the Vorthak blockade and landed near the ruins. Captain So-Min herself piloted it, her face showing the stress of watching her world burn. "Admiral Jinwoo wants to see these miracle workers." "For himself," she said as the ancient warriors boarded her ship. But when she saw them, her confident expression faltered. "You all look so young. How could you have fought anything 50,000 years ago?" "The stasis pods preserved us, Na explained. "But more importantly, they preserved our knowledge." As they flew toward the hidden fleet, Hyun-sik examined one of the ship's weapon systems. "This is impressive work, but it's designed all wrong for fighting biomechanical entities. You're trying to break through their armor instead of disrupting their neural networks." "Their what?" So-min asked. "The Vorthak aren't just machines," Darsum explained. "They're living creatures merged with technology. Hit them in the right spots and their own biology becomes their weakness." When they reached the asteroid field where the human fleet was hiding, Admiral Jin Woo's expression showed he was prepared to dismiss these strangers as desperate fantasies. But when Yuna demonstrated her abilities by moving a wrench across the room with her mind, and when Hyun-sik began modifying a plasma cannon with techniques that shouldn't have been possible, the Admiral's skepticism turned to desperate hope. "Show me," he said simply. Within hours, the ancient warriors had begun transforming the remaining human ships. They taught the crews to target specific bio-neural clusters on Vorthak vessels. They showed engineers how to modify energy weapons to disrupt alien communication systems. Most importantly, they began teaching selected humans to access abilities that had been sleeping in their genetic code for millennia. Captain So-min was the first to successfully integrate the enhanced reflexes and tactical awareness that the ancient warriors carried. During a test simulation, she moved faster than human eyes could follow and made strategic decisions that seemed to come from pure instinct. "This is incredible," she breathed. "I can see patterns in everything. It's like the universe is showing me how to fight." "That's how we survived the First War," Taijin said, "by becoming more than human when humanity needed it most." As the modified fleet prepared for their first counterattack, Admiral Jin Woo looked at his new allies with a mixture of gratitude and concern. "What price will this power cost us?" he asked. The ancient warriors exchanged glances, and Yuna answered quietly, "Everything. But that's what it takes to save everything else." The first test of their new abilities came sooner than anyone expected. A Vorthak patrol fleet discovered the human hiding spot in the asteroid field. Their massive biomechanical ships moving through space like predatory sharks, sensing blood in the water. "3 enemy vessels approaching," reported Lieutenant Hay, one from her station. "Same configuration that destroyed the Rising Star yesterday." Admiral Jin Woo looked at his modified fleet. 8 ships against an enemy that had crushed hundreds. 3 weeks ago, this would have been a death sentence. Now, with the ancient warriors' knowledge flowing through their systems and selected crew members, maybe they had a chance. "Remember what we practiced," Taijin said calmly. "Don't try to break their armor. Disrupt their neural networks. Make their own biology work against them." Captain So-min sat in the pilot's chair of the lead attack ship, her enhanced reflexes making every movement feel like slow motion. She could see patterns in the enemy formation that would have been invisible before, weak points in their positioning, timing gaps in their defensive systems. "Beginning attack run," she announced, diving her ship toward the largest Vorthak vessel. The enemy responded exactly as they always did, bringing their massive weapons to bear. But So-min wasn't where they expected her to be. Her enhanced abilities let her predict their targeting systems 3 moves ahead, weaving through their fire like she was dancing rather than fighting for her life. "Firing neural disruptor," she called out, targeting a spot that looked no different from the rest of the alien ship's hull. But Hyun-sik's modifications had taught her ship's computer to identify the bio-neural clusters that controlled Vorthak. Coordination. The modified plasma bolt struck home, and something extraordinary happened. Instead of bouncing harmlessly off the alien armor, the energy pulse traveled through the creature's living tissue like poison through veins. The massive ship shuddered, its movements becoming erratic as its biological and mechanical systems fought against each other. "It's working," So-min shouted. "The thing is turning on itself." Across the battlefield, the other human ships followed her lead. Lieutenant Min Ho, piloting the New Dawn, felt the same enhanced awareness flooding through him. He could sense the alien ship's confusion as their tried-and-true tactics suddenly failed against opponents who moved like they could read minds. The largest Vorthak vessel tried to retreat, but its biomechanical systems were too damaged. It spun out of control, crashing into one of its companion ships. Both exploded in a brilliant flash that lit up the asteroid field. The third alien ship tried to send a distress signal, but Dasom had anticipated this. From the command ship, she coordinated a jamming pattern that not only blocked their communications, but sent feedback through their neural networks. "Signal disrupted," she reported, "and I've planted a little surprise in their communication system. When they try to contact their fleet, they're going to get quite a shock." Admiral Jin Woo stared at the tactical display in amazement. 3. Enemy ships destroyed without losing a single human vessel. It was the first victory humanity had achieved since the war began. "How is this possible?" he asked. "Because we're finally fighting smart instead of just fighting hard," Tae-jin replied. "The Vorthak have been using the same tactics for millions of years. They never learned to adapt because they never needed to." Over the following weeks, more ancient warriors awakened across human space. Jun Seo emerged from a stasis pod on the mining colony of Kepler-7, immediately taking command of the scattered refugee fleets hiding in that system. His tactical genius turned a group of frightened survivors into a coordinated strike force. Mira awakened on the agricultural world of New Eden, where she found human colonists trapped in underground shelters while Vorthak harvesting machines stripped their planet bare. Using knowledge of bioengineering that modern science had never imagined, she turned the aliens' own machines against them. Each victory built on the last. Human forces that had been running and hiding for months suddenly began striking back, with tactics that seemed impossible. They hit supply convoys that shouldn't have been vulnerable. They sabotaged enemy installations that were supposed to be impregnable. They rescued prisoners from facilities that the Vorthak thought were perfectly secure. Captain So Min led a raid on the Vorthak stronghold orbiting Mars, her enhanced abilities allowing her team to infiltrate the massive bioship through ventilation, systems that normal humans would never have detected. They planted neural disruptors throughout the vessel's living sections, causing it to literally digest itself from the inside out. "The aliens are calling us ghost warriors," reported intelligence. Officer Tae-woo during a strategy meeting. "Their communications show they're genuinely afraid of us for the first time. But the victories came with a price that became harder to ignore." Yun-sik's hair had turned completely white, and his hands shook when he thought no one was looking. Yuna moved more slowly each day, her psychic abilities burning through her life force like fuel in an engine. Dasom had started coughing up blood during planning sessions. "You're dying," Admiral Jin Woo said to Tae-jin, after a particularly brutal battle where the ancient warrior had single-handedly disabled an enemy dreadnought. "We were always dying," Tae-jin replied quietly. "The stasis pods kept us alive, but they couldn't stop time forever. Every day we fight, every ability we use, costs us weeks of the life we have left. Then why do it?" Tae-jin looked out at the stars, where human ships now moved with confidence instead of fear. "Because that's what warriors do. We spend our lives so others can keep theirs." The tide had turned, but the ancient warriors knew their time was running out. In the distance, long-range sensors were picking up something that made their blood run cold. Massive energy signatures moving through deep space toward human territory. The Devourers had finally noticed that their advanced scouts were failing, the mom. Real war was about to begin. The warning came at 3 in the morning, ship time. Admiral Jin Woo was pulled from restless sleep by alarms that meant only one thing: something massive was approaching Earth. He stumbled to the bridge of the Eternal Dawn to find his crew staring at sensor readings that defied belief. "Sir?" Lieutenant Hae-won's voice was barely a whisper. "Long-range scanners are picking up energy signatures unlike anything we've seen. They're still 3 days out, but the size of these ships—" Jin Woo looked at the tactical display and felt his heart sink. The approaching fleet made the Vorthak invasion look like a minor skirmish. Hundreds of vessels, each one larger than a moon, were moving toward human space with terrifying purpose. Tae-jin appeared beside him, moving like an old man despite his youthful appearance. The ancient warrior's face had grown gaunt over the past weeks, his eyes sunken but still burning with determination. "The Devourers," he said simply. They finally decided to deal with us personally. How do we fight something that big? Jin Wu asked. We don't fight them, Taejin replied. We stop them, but it will cost everything we have left. Across the fleet, the other ancient warriors were having similar conversations. Yuna sat with Captain So Min, teaching her the final techniques that would transform her from an enhanced human into something closer to what humanity used to be. The genetic memories in your DNA go back millions of years, Yuna explained, her voice growing weaker with each word. Most of it is locked away because your minds couldn't handle that much information, but in an emergency, with the right trigger, So Min felt the knowledge flowing into her, not just fighting techniques, but ways of thinking that belonged to ancestors who had battled cosmic horrors among distant stars. It hurt, like trying to pour an ocean through a straw, but she forced herself to accept it. On the engineering deck, Hyun-sik worked frantically with a team of human technicians to build something that had never been attempted before. His hands shook constantly now, and sometimes he forgot where he was, lost in memories of battles fought before Earth had oceans. The neural network amplifier, he explained to Chief Engineer Park Min as they worked. If we can link every enhanced human in the fleet together, their combined psychic energy might be enough to create a disruption field across an entire star system. Might be? Park Min asked. I've never tried it on this scale, Hyun-sik admitted. The theory is sound, but theory doesn't account for what happens to the people providing the power. Da-som spent her final days working with fleet commanders across human space, coordinating what she knew would be humanity's last stand. Her strategic mind, enhanced by 50,000 years of experience, could see every possible outcome of the coming battle. Most of them ended in extinction. There's one chance, she told Admiral Jin Wu during their final planning session. If we can channel enough psychic energy through the amplifier network, we can send a message that will reach across the galaxy, not just to the Devourers, but to every species they've encountered. What kind of message? The kind that shows them what happens when you try to destroy something that refuses to die. Junseo and Mira arrived from the outer colonies just hours before the Devourer fleet reached Earth's solar system. Both ancient warriors looked like ghosts of themselves, their life force nearly exhausted from the constant battles to buy time. For the final preparations, the refugee fleets are in position, Junseo reported. Every civilian ship we could find is hidden in the asteroid belts of the outer planets. And the bioweapon countermeasures are ready, Mira added. If the Devourers try to consume Earth's biosphere, they're going to get a very nasty surprise. The enemy fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel just beyond Mars, and their presence was like a shadow falling across the solar system. The ships were grotesque things that looked more grown than built, covered in mouths that could swallow planets and tentacles that reached across space itself. All enhanced humans, linked to the amplifier network, Yuna's voice echoed across every ship in the human fleet. Remember, you're not just fighting for Earth. You're fighting for every world these things have consumed, every species they've driven to extinction. Captain So Min felt the connection snap into place. Her consciousness suddenly expanded to touch hundreds of other minds. The sensation was overwhelming. She could feel Admiral Jin Wu's determination, Lieutenant Hai Wan's courage, Engineer Park Min's fierce protectiveness of his home world, but strongest of all, she felt the ancient warriors. Their minds were like blazing stars about to go supernova, burning through their remaining life force to power something that had never been attempted before. Now, Taejin whispered across the network, the combined psychic energy of every enhanced human in the fleet flowed through Hyun-sik's amplifiers and burst outward in a wave that transcended physical space. It wasn't just a weapon, it was a message, a declaration that rang across the galaxy like a bell. The Devourer fleet suddenly stopped moving. Their massive ships writhed in space, as something they had never encountered before flooded their collective consciousness, the absolute refusal of an entire species to be consumed. The psychic wave carried the memories of every human who had ever lived, every moment of courage and sacrifice and love that had built their civilization. It showed the Devourers what they were trying to destroy, not just another species, but something unique in the cosmos. And then it showed them the price of trying. The feedback from their own neural networks, amplified and reflected back at them, caused the devourer ships to turn on each other. Ancient creatures that had consumed galaxies suddenly found themselves facing the combined will of every species they had ever destroyed, channeled through humanity's refusal to surrender. One by one, the massive ships began to collapse, their biomechanical systems failing as they experienced something they had never known, defeat. But the victory came at the ultimate cost. Across the human fleet, the ancient warriors began to fade. Their bodies, sustained by technology and will for 50,000 years, finally reached their limit. "It's done," Taijin said to Admiral Zhou, his form already becoming translucent. "The message will reach every corner of the galaxy. Any species that tries to follow the Devourer's path will know what waits for them." "What about you?" Jinwu asked. "We go to our rest, knowing our watch is ended," Yuna replied, her voice like an echo of wind. "But we leave you something more, valuable than weapons or knowledge." "What's that?" "The proof that some things are worth dying for," Darsom said, "and that sometimes dying for them is how you win." The ancient warriors faded away like morning mist, but their gift remained. Every human who had been connected to the network retained a fragment of their abilities, their knowledge, their unbreakable will. Captain So Min found herself promoted to admiral, leading the rebuilding of human civilization with wisdom that seemed to come from ages of experience. Engineer Park Min designed new ships that blended ancient knowledge with modern innovation. Dr. Yu Jin established schools where children learned not just science and mathematics, but the warrior's code that had saved their species. Earth healed. The colonies were rebuilt. And in the deepest vaults of every human world, monuments were carved with simple words, in memory of those who showed us that the greatest strength is not the refusal to fall, but the decision to rise again. When other species eventually made contact with humanity, they found something they had never encountered before, a race that had faced extinction and emerged stronger, carrying the wisdom of warriors who had conquered time itself. The Ancient. Warriors were gone, but their legacy lived on in every human heart, the knowledge that no darkness, no matter how vast, could extinguish the light of those who refused to surrender. Humanity had learned the greatest lesson of all, that heroes never truly die as long as someone remembers what they stood for.